Chapter 1. The darkness between the stars. If the universe contains trillions upon trillions of stars, why is space so dark? And perhaps an even more important question, what does it feel like to spend months surrounded by that darkness? You are aboard the starship Genesis, humanity's first vessel to journey beyond the solar system. It has now been nearly 6 months since the ship last passed a planet. 6 months since there was anything outside the observation windows larger than a distant point of light. Tomorrow will likely look much the same as today. Out here, the universe changes very slowly. Each morning, you find yourself drawn to the observation lounge. The lights dim automatically as you enter. The great window stretches from floor to ceiling. Beyond it, darkness. Not an empty darkness, but one scattered with distant stars that seem almost frozen in place. At first, many aboard Genesis found the silence unsettling. They expected space to be busy, to be filled with passing worlds, drifting asteroids, brilliant nebulae, or constant discoveries. Instead, they found themselves traveling through months of almost perfect stillness. Some stopped looking outside altogether. Others found themselves returning every evening, not because the view had changed, but because it almost never did. There was something strangely calming about it. The darkness asked nothing of you. It simply existed, patient, silent, endless. As the weeks passed, the crew slowly realized something unexpected. The darkness was no longer frightening. It had become familiar, even comforting. Children born aboard Genesis would never understand why their parents once feared the view beyond the glass. For them, this quiet ocean of stars had always been home. And yet, a mystery remained. If the universe is filled with more stars than the human mind can comprehend, why isn't every corner of the sky ablaze with light? The answer begins with a number so unimaginably large that even aboard Genesis, it is almost impossible to truly appreciate. Chapter 2. The size of nothing. You remain seated in the observation lounge. The stars beyond the glass seem almost motionless. On Earth, the night sky changes with every passing hour. The planet turns beneath the heavens, giving the illusion that the stars are moving overhead. Here aboard Genesis, there is no sunrise, no sunset, only the slow passage of time. For weeks, the same familiar constellations have greeted you each evening. Only the ship's instruments reveal that Genesis is quietly crossing millions of kilometers every single day. Space has a way of making enormous distances feel meaningless. When we look at a map of our solar system, the planets often appear comfortably arranged around the sun. Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars. But those diagrams tell a comforting lie. They are drawn that way because no sheet of paper could ever contain the true distances. If Earth were the size of a marble, the moon would orbit nearly a meter away. The sun would be more than 100 meters from Earth. And Neptune, the most distant major planet, would be over 3 kilometers away. Yet even that immense distance is only the front garden of our cosmic neighborhood. The nearest star beyond our sun, Proxima Centauri, lies more than 4 light years away. Not 4 years of driving, not 4 years of flying, 4 years traveling at the fastest speed the universe allows. If Genesis could somehow travel at the speed of light, the fastest anything can ever move, it would still take more than 4 years to arrive. But Genesis does not travel at the speed of light. No human spacecraft ever has. which means the journey is measured not in years, but in generations. As you quietly watch the stars beyond the observation window, it becomes easier to understand why the universe feels so empty. The stars are not avoiding one another. They are simply separated by distances almost too large for the human mind to imagine. Each point of light exists within an ocean of darkness so vast that entire civilizations could pass between them without ever seeing another sun grow noticeably brighter. The crew of Genesis has come to understand this in a very personal way. Months have passed since leaving the familiar worlds behind. The darkness outside has barely changed, not because Genesis is standing still, but because the universe is unimaginably large. And yet, something still doesn't make sense. If stars fill our own galaxy, and galaxies fill the universe, shouldn't all of their light eventually fill the darkness between them? Why doesn't the night sky glow with the combined light of every star that has ever existed? The answer lies not only in distance, but in the remarkable journey that light itself must make. That journey begins next. Chapter 3. Where has all the light gone? Several evenings each week, small groups gather in the observation lounge. There is no schedule, no formal meeting. People simply arrive. Some read quietly beneath the soft lights. Others sit in silence, watching a universe that rarely seems to change. Conversations come and go as naturally as the passing hours. One evening, a child asks a simple question. If there are so many stars, why is space so dark? The room grows quiet. It is the sort of question that sounds almost too simple. Yet even the scientists aboard Genesis smile, because the answer is far from obvious. After all, every star shines in every direction. Imagine standing in the middle of a vast forest. Wherever you look, eventually your eyes would meet the trunk of a tree. If the forest stretched forever, there would be no empty spaces between the trees. Now imagine replacing every tree with a star. The universe contains hundreds of billions of stars within our own galaxy alone. Beyond our galaxy lie hundreds of billions more galaxies, each filled with hundreds of billions of additional stars. The numbers become so large that they lose all meaning. If the universe were infinite, if stars had always existed, and if their light had unlimited time to travel, then every direction we looked should eventually end on the surface of a star. The night sky should glow as brightly as the surface of the sun. Darkness should not exist, and yet, beyond the windows of Genesis, darkness is everywhere. The crew has crossed millions of kilometers through interstellar space. Night after night, they have watched the stars, beautiful, steady, distant, but always surrounded by an ocean of black. The universe itself seems to disagree with what simple logic predicts. For centuries, some of Earth's greatest astronomers wrestled with this mystery, not because they doubted the stars, but because they trusted mathematics. Somewhere, something about the universe was different from what people had first imagined. The answer would change our understanding of the cosmos forever. The darkness surrounding Genesis is not evidence that the universe is empty. It is evidence that the universe has a story, a beginning, an age, a history, and every beam of starlight that reaches the observation window has been traveling across that history for an astonishing length of time. Some of the light you see tonight left its star before the first pyramids were built. Some began its journey before the dinosaurs disappeared. Some started long before Earth itself had even formed. And some light has simply not had enough time to arrive. That realization changes everything. The darkness is not a failure of the stars to shine. It is a reminder that the universe is still unfolding, and to understand why, we must follow a single beam of light on its extraordinary journey across space and time. Chapter 4. Looking into the past. The following evening, the observation lounge is quieter than usual. No one speaks very much. The conversation from the night before lingers in everyone's thoughts. If light takes time to travel, then perhaps the universe is not being seen as it is, but as it once was. You settle into your chair beside the great window. The stars appear unchanged, calm, silent, timeless. Yet you now understand that every point of light carries a history. Nothing you see is happening in this very moment. The moon, as it appeared from Earth, was always a little over 1 second in the past. Sunlight reaching your face had already spent 8 minutes crossing the solar system. Even the last radio messages from Earth required time to catch up with Genesis, before gradually fading into the immense distance behind the ship. Out here, time and distance have become inseparable. When the crew looks toward Proxima Centauri, they are not seeing the star as it exists today. They are seeing it as it was more than 4 years ago. If something extraordinary happened there, this very instant, no one aboard Genesis would know for years. The farther you look into space, the farther back in time you see. Some of the brilliant stars scattered across the darkness are hundreds of light years away. Their light began its journey long before anyone living aboard Genesis was born. The great spiral galaxies visible through the ship's telescopes are farther still, millions of years, tens of millions, even hundreds of millions of years into the past. Their ancient light has crossed unimaginable distances simply to arrive at this single observation window. It is a humbling thought. The universe does not reveal itself all at once. It tells its story slowly, one beam of light at a time. The crew has come to appreciate this patience. Life aboard Genesis is measured in quiet routines, small achievements, gentle conversations, days that seem almost identical to the one before. The universe moves in much the same way, not with urgency, but with extraordinary patience. Perhaps that is why the darkness no longer feels empty. It is filled with journeys. Every ray of light has traveled farther than any human being ever has. Some have crossed thousands of years, others millions. Many began traveling before our earliest ancestors learned to write. And tonight, their journeys end upon a single pane of glass aboard humanity's first interstellar ship. You begin to realize that looking out into space is unlike looking across an ocean or across a mountain range. It is more like opening an ancient history book. Every page was written at a different time. Every chapter arrived by taking its own remarkable journey. The observation lounge is not simply a room with a view. It is a place where the past quietly gathers. And yet, even this remarkable truth explains only part of the darkness. There are places so distant that their light has still not reached anyone. Not Earth, not Genesis, not anywhere humanity has ever existed. Beyond the stars you can see, there are countless others whose stories are still traveling toward us, and many will continue their journey. long after everyone aboard Genesis has become part of history themselves. Chapter 5: A Universe Still Awakening. The darkness beyond Genesis no longer feels quite the same. It has become more than the absence of light. It has become a reminder that the universe has not finished revealing itself. As you sit before the observation window, it is tempting to imagine that every star which will ever shine is already visible, that somewhere beyond the darkness, every corner of creation is already illuminated. But that is not the universe we inhabit. The universe has an age, nearly 14 billion years, immense beyond imagination, yet still finite. That simple fact changes everything. Light can travel only so far within a finite amount of time, even moving at the greatest speed nature allows. There are places so distant that their light is still making its journey. It has not yet reached Earth. It has not yet reached Genesis. It has not reached anyone. Those stars are not hidden. They are simply too far away for their story to have arrived. Every night aboard Genesis, the crew gazes into a universe that is still introducing itself. Every distant point of light is another chapter that has finally reached human eyes. Beyond those stars, countless more remain unseen, not because they are dark, but because their light is still crossing the unimaginable gulf between galaxies. It is a beautiful thought. The universe is not a finished painting hanging upon a wall. It is a masterpiece still being created. Each passing year allows light from places once invisible to travel a little farther. Every generation aboard Genesis will see a universe ever so slightly different from the one their parents knew. The changes will be almost impossible to notice during a single lifetime. But across centuries, the cosmos slowly reveals more of itself. Perhaps that is why patience has become one of the crew's greatest virtues. Nothing aboard Genesis can be rushed. Not the journey, not the generations who will continue it, and certainly not the universe itself. The stars teach this lesson every evening. Some have traveled for millions of years, simply to become visible for a single moment through the observation window. Compared to that, a human lifetime is astonishingly brief, yet somehow, that thought is not discouraging. It is comforting. Humanity does not need to see the entire universe to find meaning within it. It is enough to know that we are part of a story far larger than ourselves, a story still unfolding. A story whose next chapter is traveling toward us even now, at the speed of light. As the lights in the observation lounge begin to dim for the evening, you take one final look into the darkness. It no longer feels empty. It feels full of promises, promises carried by ancient photons that have traveled across billions of years, patiently waiting to arrive. Some reached humanity long before Genesis was ever imagined. Others will arrive long after this ship has completed its extraordinary voyage. And somewhere, beyond the edge of everything you can see tonight, the universe continues to send its light toward home. Chapter 6. The comfort of the dark months have passed since Genesis left the familiar worlds behind. The stars beyond the observation lounge remain much as they always have. Silent, patient, endlessly distant. And yet, everything has changed. Not beyond the glass, but within it. The darkness that once unsettled so many aboard Genesis has become an old companion. No one speaks of it anymore. There is no moment when the fear simply disappears. It fades quietly. one evening at a time. The observation lounge has become one of the most cherished places aboard the ship, not because there is always something remarkable to see, but because there almost never is. Some crew members bring a book and lose themselves beneath the soft glow of the reading lamps. Others simply sit together without speaking. Children press their hands gently against the great window, searching for familiar constellations that their parents once pointed out months before. The stars have become landmarks, not destinations, just as sailors once crossed Earth's oceans guided by the night sky. The people of Genesis have begun measuring their lives against the quiet certainty of these distant lights. Birthdays are celebrated here. Retirements are marked here. New friendships begin here. Sometimes, nothing happens at all. And somehow, those evenings become the ones people remember most. Life on Earth was filled with movement. Cities never truly slept. Roads carried an endless stream of travelers. The skies were crossed by aircraft, the seas by ships. There was always another destination, another deadline, another distraction out here. The universe asks for none of those things. Its silence invites something many people had forgotten how to do. Simply be still. The crew has discovered that stillness is not the same as emptiness. Within the quiet, they notice conversations that might otherwise have been hurried. Thoughts that once disappeared beneath the noise of everyday life. Moments that ask for nothing except to be experienced. Perhaps this is one of the unexpected gifts of a journey between the stars. The darkness slows you down. It reminds you that not every silence needs to be filled. Not every mystery demands an immediate answer. Some are simply meant to be observed with patience. You look once more through the great observation window. The stars are exactly where they were yesterday, and somehow, that is comforting. The universe no longer feels cold or indifferent. It feels steady, constant, faithful. The darkness is no longer something to fear. It has become a place where the mind can finally rest. And as Genesis continues its quiet voyage toward the unknown, the crew carries with them a truth that could never have been learned from books alone. Sometimes the greatest discoveries are not found in distant stars, but within ourselves, as we learn to see them differently. Chapter 7, The Endless Horizon. When this journey began, the darkness beyond Genesis seemed almost impossible to understand. It felt empty, cold, perhaps even a little frightening. The human mind has always searched for familiar shapes, for landmarks, for signs that we are not alone. Yet the universe offers something different, not endless activity, but endless possibility. As Genesis continues its silent voyage between the stars, the observation lounge remains as peaceful as ever. Someone sits quietly with a warm drink. Another writes a letter that will never reach Earth until years after it was written. A child traces imaginary lines between distant stars, creating constellations that no one on Earth has ever seen. Life continues, calmly, patiently. The darkness outside has not changed, but the people looking into it have. They no longer see an empty void. They see distance, time, history. Every star has become a reminder that light is patient, that the universe is patient, and perhaps that we can learn to be patient too. Long before Genesis was built, our ancestors crossed oceans without knowing what waited beyond the horizon. They looked into uncertainty and chose to sail anyway, not because the journey promised comfort, but because curiosity has always been one of humanity's greatest strengths. This voyage is no different. The ocean is simply much larger now, and the horizon much farther away. There will be years when little seems to change, years when the stars appear almost frozen in place, years when the greatest discoveries are found, not beyond the ship, but within the people who call it home. Perhaps that is the quiet lesson the universe has been teaching all along. We often imagine exploration as a series of dramatic moments, a new world, a distant civilization, a breathtaking discovery. Yet most exploration is something far quieter. It is the willingness to keep moving forward, even when the landscape appears unchanged, to trust that every day carries you somewhere new, even if your eyes cannot yet see the difference. Genesis continues onward, steadily, silently, patiently. Behind her, Earth has become another distant star. Ahead, an ocean of light is still making its long journey across the universe. One day, photons that have traveled for billions of years will arrive at the windows of this ship. Others will continue traveling long after Genesis has completed her mission. The universe does not hurry, neither does Genesis, and perhaps that is why they understand one another so well. As you take one final look through the great observation window, the darkness no longer feels like the absence of something. It feels like a place where countless stories are still on their way. Thank you for joining the crew of Genesis, humanity's first voyage beyond the solar system. Until our next journey, rest well and good night.